Hi, Reynas.
Do it in 0.5 so that way you
Oh,
have
sorry. Do you want to say hi to the Reynas before we start?
Hi, Reynas.
Hi, Reynas. What's up, trillionaires?
Say hi. I'm just recording my reaction. I didn't want to like hold up the camera and be like panning.
Yeah, just like film whoever's speaking.
Like zoom in.
Or
Zoom in
every,
really
pass
close.
the phone if you're asking a question.
It's good. It's good.
It's too bad that we don't have all of the remote learning stuff set up. Then we could have just like put them up on Teams on the iPad.
Yeah, you're right.
What are you gonna do? What's that?
Like, it was nice because like you never miss any like schoolwork.
Yeah, but also you never miss.
Yeah. Well, I don't miss like online learning fully, but like in that little transition period, like freshman year when we were all here, but then if you weren't here,
Yeah.
it was mostly awful.
Except for snow days. I was so scared they would just be like, get online. Okay, online gym now.
Yeah.
Oh, I was wasting my time. I was wasting my time. Okay. A ping pong video.
Alright.
Or when we had like a private room.
Let's
for
just
art.
talk about the test on Friday. I'm gonna pull it up so that I can look at it. It'll be very much like the last one, in which the multiple choice questions, there will be 20. They will be worth 5 points each. And the FRQ will be for bonus points only. Okay? Let's see. Let me take a look at what I did.
Guys, wait. She said that the test is more like the AP classroom than the SAT
program I
plan.
have for writing tests.
Good
Sometimes
for
I
you,
use
Chris.
just Microsoft Word, and
Good
then
for
other
Chris.
times I use my software that I have for generating questions.
I can't find my
What?
how to open my
Oh, I have 25 questions?
it's too late. She just does.
Okay.
Is that? But like when I clicked on it, it did that.
Then I'm lost. That's what I was doing.
Mary.
All right, so essentially, the way that I wrote this, you guys, is that there's like kind of 5 easy ones that are just like identify. Can you identify a thing, right? And then there are a little bit more than 10 medium questions. Do you know what I mean? Like in terms of level of difficulty. And then I've got 2 or 3 that are, I know they're hard questions, and they're meant to separate an A from a B, if you will. Does that make sense? Okay. So they're a little bit more in depth. Mary has a question.
When you're talking about like, can you identify?
That's just like, do
Obviously,
you,
don't tell me the question.
like I'll give you an
No,
example.
tell us.
Like, can you define what marginal factor cost is, or marginal resource product, right?
Okay, so more
You
like-
cannot properly identify the definition of that term, you can answer the question, right? So it's less of an application question than it is, do you know what this concept means in general terms, okay? The medium questions are more like just general, straightforward application. And the 2 or 3 that are what I consider to be difficult questions are, you need to know the concept behind the concept. Does that make sense? Right? Or it might involve you recalling some of the concepts that we have done in earlier units, right? They may incorporate, for example, things we've done in unit 2 or 3 or 4. Yeah.
The FRQs are like different, but like the practice FRQs that you said would be like submitted on the test, would you consider those like
Pretty tough.
okay?
Those are pretty tough. The FRQs I gave you guys to practice are pretty tough. Let me look at the FRQ I've got on here and see if I can give you a sense of how difficult it is.
The FRQ for this test is bonus.
That's correct. It is a bonus.
feel like I'm on The Office because I keep making eye contact and making faces.
Yeah. It's a pretty tough one. It's a pretty tough one, okay? So
What?
just keep that in mind.
It already is.
Okay.
I'll just turn it down.
The other thing that I wanted you guys to know about before we went on with the review seminar is that it is pointless for me to try to introduce new material from Unit 6 on Monday and Tuesday. So I'll just have to reteach it when we get back from Christmas break because you guys are all going to flake on it, and I don't blame you because your brains are going to turn to mush while you sleep in until 1 o'clock in the afternoon and fill your bodies full of chocolate and go to movies all day. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what you should be doing. So, so we'll just start from scratch with Unit 6. We'll have to go really fast, so just know that once we get back. But we'll just spend Monday and Tuesday reviewing, including Tuesday is going to be a graphathon extravaganza.
Ooh.
Okay, so
You guys better be there.
Monday, you guys will essentially have work time to work on all the review materials that I have already provided on Canvas. And you can sort through those, you can get yourselves organized, you know what I mean, in terms of preparing for next Thursday's exam. Tuesday will be a graphathon extravaganza that will take the entire class. And then, of course, you guys are welcome to schedule one-on-one office hours with me on Wednesday, and then the exam is the second exam period on Thursday, which is the 14th. Okay? Okay, yeah.
You said that this test can't be retaken.
I did not say that. This
Oh.
test is eligible for a retest. So here's how it's gonna work, Kendall. As long as everyone is here on Friday, I should be able to get the scores completed by the end of the day on Friday. I can work fast. I can grade FRQs really fast. So, or score, I should say score FRQs really fast. If you're eligible for a retest, I will let you know Friday or Saturday. And then you can let me know if you have time to retest on Monday or Tuesday. Unfortunately, I will not be able to allow you into the building on Wednesday for a retest, okay? So it's a very short window for a retest. I don't recommend it. What I recommend is that you have our hybrid day tomorrow to study. You guys have taken those quizzes, like do your due diligence and study, because you're not gonna want to retest on this one. You're not gonna want to. It's too fast of a turnaround time. You guys are under too much pressure in terms of preparing for all the other exams that you have to take at the end of next week. So I don't recommend it. I'll do it. You can do it, but I don't recommend it. Does that make sense? Okay. To our main objective, which is reviewing for Friday's test. It's your seminar. I'm gonna sit back and try to say as little as possible. Lily, why don't you start us off?
I believe there was a question like this on the sapling, but my sapling won't work. But so it was, why is the marginal factor cost of labor always above the market labor supply curve? And also, like, is that always true? So why is the marginal factor cost of labor always above the market labor supply curve? And like, is this always true?
Go ahead, Sophia.
I have something to bring up, but I don't really know how to
if a firm is not a monopsony, what does their marginal factor cost curve look like? If a firm is not a monopsonist, if they're in a perfectly competitive labor market, what does their marginal factor cost curve look like? Give you a hint, we did it yesterday as we were reviewing. Mary? Yes, can you explain why?
Because they're takers from the industry.
Yes. They're wage takers from the competitive labor market. So they are facing a perfectly elastic marginal factor cost curve, which is also equal to their supply curve of labor, right? So in perfect competition, MFC or MRC, however you want to state it, is equal to the supply of labor for that firm who's hiring. Winnie?
Could someone explain just how monopolies exist in the factor market? Because I know there's monopolies, but on the FRQs it just said like to graph for a monopoly. So I was just wondering how that would differ from perfect competition if it does.
You know what FRQ?
I think it was one of the ones we did in class, I want to say.
It was either number 12 or number 13. 12.
Can you repeat your question again, Glennie?
Oh yeah, it was explaining how monopolies exist in a factor market and how that graph and just like in general how that would differ from perfect competition and monopsonies.
Go ahead, Parker.
From my understanding, monopoly is a single producer, so that's like in the output market, where monopsonists are the single buyer in the factor market. So like they're almost like the reflection of each other in the supply and output markets.
Yeah, and I think like a monopolist can operate either in a competitive labor market or in a monopsonist's labor market, in which they're the only hirer of factors. Kendall?
Can someone explain, this was in one of the sapling problems, but one of them mentioned like the answers was either like a shift of the supply of labor or the quantity of labor supplied, and I just didn't know if like they were different things or
They
what.
are different
And what
things.
makes it
Let's talk
different?
about them.
What question?
I don't have the sapling question, I just have the like,
The general concept.
yeah.
How do we know the difference between essentially a different, like a change in the quantity supplied of labor versus a change, what's gonna impact the supply of labor? Wendy?
So I have that what shifts labor supply is changes in preferences and social norms, changes in population, changes in opportunity, and changes in wealth. And I think it's kind of just like what shifts supply in general is that it's like different at every single wage and it can completely like shift instead of just along the curve. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, yeah,
So is quantity of labor supplied on like shift on the curve?
it's a movement along.
Normal.
And what would change the quantity supply of labor? Mary?
Is that like the price?
Yeah, which for this factor market is what?
The wages.
Yes, the wage. So if wages increase for whatever reason, right, that would increase the wage. Lily?
Does this like tie in with like preference for like work and leisure?
What do you guys think? talked about it when we went over it in class, do you remember? Buddy?
So I think like some of it is changed by like changes in wealth and then changes in preference and social norms. Cause it's like the income effect and substitution effect of like, if you feel poor or richer working, so like, you're working to get money, so you're gonna feel richer, so you'll wanna work more, or substitution that like, your leisure time is more important than the $10 you could get paid at your job. But if they raise the wages to like $20, like 20 hours for, or $20 is like more of an accurate measure of your time instead.
And what would be some examples of social norms that could change, that would impact the supply of labor? By that I mean like the total supply of labor. I gave some examples when we went over it in class. Maybe we can come up with something.
I don't think you said this in class, but I guess it kind of depends. If you live in an area where over the summer all the kids work,
Yeah,
then
that's
the
exactly
supply
what I'm
could
talking about. Yeah. Yeah, so when I was a kid, everyone I knew over the age of 15 had a job after school and on the weekends. That was just the norm in Cincinnati in the mid-18, I would say 1880s. In the mid-1980s, right? I would say there's still a good number of students who have jobs after school and on weekends, but not anywhere near like when I was in high school. Number one, things have changed in terms of the requirements and the level of rigor in your preparation to get into college. And the expectations on teenagers today, not just for their academic performance, but for their extracurricular. So you guys very infrequently have the time for the kind of jobs that I did when I was in high school, right? Or my friends had in high school, right? In the summertime, a lot of you guys are doing athletic conditioning and going to special programs at universities so that your college resume looks better, like different kind of camps at college campuses and stuff like that, instead of spending your entire 2.5 months working like everybody else I knew. Because that's a social norm that has changed, right? So it has decreased the supply of 15 to 18-year-olds who are willing to work for wages. So,
I had a question about economic rent and rental rate, and I was wondering what they are.
so let's do both.
Yeah, they're like two separate.
Yeah, they're two separate things. So let's focus first on rental rate. Let's start with that. Parker?
Rental rate is like the amount you pay to like use a piece of capital, so like you guys are type of like machine that you have to loan, it's like $3 to do it or something like that.
Mary?
Like the wage is how much you're paying the worker.
But if we're talking about economic rent, we're not gonna be talking about workers. Okay, because they get wages. This is gonna be in the market for capital equipment.
So one of the examples that the sapling has was like the economic rent was the person for their visit, so like it was like in excess of the minimum payment necessary to employ that factor, so like they had already like had the monument, but then when I actually went to the monument to see it, me paying to see it was the economic rent, like,
Yeah.
so is it like the extra?
Kinda, yeah. It's like the total they're getting for having for having the availability of that piece of capital equipment or whatever that capital is as well as the opportunity cost of what they can give that out for somebody else. Or rent it out for someone else, okay? So if we were doing like total wages, when in our hire factor, it would be the quantity of laborers times the wage. This is the quantity of the capital times how many units of capital we're employing. Does that make sense? Andy?
In the book, I thought it said that, like, monopsonies, if they wanna hire more workers, they have to offer a higher wage to attract the workers. But then in the sapling, there was one that said that monopsonies pay a lower wage and hire less workers. So I was just, is it always like one of those, or?
I think you maybe were misunderstanding the first part, like what they were talking about. If they wanna hire more workers, they have to pay all the previous workers the same amount, right? Like they can't decide like, we'll hire workers 1 through 3 at a wage of $8 an hour and 4 and 5 at $10 an hour and so on, right? Once the people talk and find out, like, oh, you're getting $10 an hour, everyone's gonna go to the boss and say, where's my you gave Andy $10 an hour and I'm only getting $8 an hour. I'm leaving if you don't pay me $10 an hour. So that was a way for them to explain why, for a monopsonist, the marginal factor cost curve is above the labor supply curve.
So like, just in comparison to like perfect competition, they have lower wages, or they
Yes.
pay lower wages?
Yes, they hire less workers because remember that for any firm, monopsonist or a firm operating in a perfectly competitive labor market, they are going to hire the number of workers where the marginal revenue product is equal to the marginal factor cost, right? But for a monopsonist, those two curves are not exactly the same. So they hire the number at the intersection of those two curves, but then they go down vertically at that number of workers and find what is the salary or the wage that goes along with that quantity of laborers, right? They know they only wanna hire 8. And they know that like they can get 8 workers at this lower wage. Okay, Olivia?
So for a monopsony, like within reason, ultimately they can kind of set the price wherever they want for like laborers coming in. There.
Well, guys, what do you think of that statement? Can a monopsonist just set the wage wherever they want? Lily?
I would say like to some extent, yes, but there has to be a certain wage in order where workers would want to work there, I guess, and also if there is like a government like minimum wage set.
They have to deal with the reality of the labor supply curve. They can't get around that. If they want to produce output, they need workers. So the answer is they can't just pay whatever they want. At the quantity that they want to, like at the number of laborers they want to hire for their marginal revenue product is equal to their marginal factor cost, they want to hire that many. And in the face of that, they have to deal with where's the labor supply curve in correlation to that quantity. Yuri?
When we're looking at like the least cost calculation, and we're doing why do we, like, if you say like the labor is 20 and the capital's 10, so it's like aren't equal to each other, why do we spend more on the labor instead of
Yeah, we took us some time with this when we were working on that packet for activity 4.2, and I explained it, but let's go over it again, because this is important, Kendall.
It's because of diminishing marginal returns. So like if say the labor's 20 and the capital's 10, you'd want to increase the labor, because once you increase it, that marginal product's gonna like be decreasing at a rate. So you like increase to decrease is what I think of.
Do you guys feel pretty confident that you can do both cost minimization and profit maximization? As a firm, you're trying to decide how many units of two factors to employ.
If you start like on the sapling, when they gave the example of like the firm producing, they said like should they employ less labor, capital or whatever, like I wasn't sure how to tell if it was cost minimization or profit.
The question will ask, in order to maximize profits, blah, 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 right? So the question should specify where you stop it.
Well, I understood the difference between both is that, cost, wait, the minimizing cost equation is equal to 1, where the other equation
The profit maximization is equal to 1. You have to force those two to be equal to one another, and they're both equal to 1. And then, least cost combination is where the two have the same ratio. Isn't it?
but they're not equal to 1 in the least cost?
No. Because remember yesterday with I think it was number 9, we were trying to find the least cost combination if they wanted to make 80 units. But we found 2 different places in that question where the combination of labor and capital had that same ratio of marginal resource product, like, or marginal product per dollar for each one, right? But you have to find the place where not only are those 2 things equal to each other, but that ratio is equal to 1 as well. That's the profit maximization, so that each one is squeezing as much dollar or revenue out of each thing. Other questions? Yeah, Mary.
So on the sapling, there's like 2 questions 5 and 6 about, like how many workers to hire and like what would the revenue product labor for like the sapling worker be? And I got like the first part right about the marginal revenue product of labor for this thing, but I didn't understand like what I was looking for exactly for like what the worker should do, is. I think the actual answer was, yeah, 5. But I didn't know like what I was exactly looking for.
Okay. What do you gotta do? You gotta find where what? So you got number 5 right, where you were able to identify the
Yeah.
marginal revenue product of the second worker.
Yeah.
Okay, but then you struggled with, well, how do you figure out how many workers to hire? How do you figure that out? Zafa?
Isn't it just where the
Yeah.
Where I get 8, like on the. Okay.
I think, I'm not sure what the answer is, but.
Cause that lines up with the. We have this, yeah. So I was just looking at it,
Because the marginal revenue they were gonna get out of that 5th worker is $8.
Yeah.
And that's equal to the factor cost of hiring 5 workers. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Olivia?
This was a separate question, just wasn't sure why. It was, explain why compared to the supply curve for capital, the supply curve for land is steeper, less elastic, and less responsive to market changes.
Bentley?
Is that because like you can't really make, like land is all here, but you can't make more of it? It's just like,
Yes. It's much more inelastic, the supply of land. It's not perfectly inelastic because geology, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen the human-made islands in like the Persian Gulf, like around Dubai and stuff like that, like it can be done. It's really, really hard and expensive. Have you guys seen those, by the way? They're really cool. Look it up on Google Images sometime. Man-made islands in the Middle East. It's pretty, so, human engineering and whatnot. Lily?
This was number 14 on the sapling. I don't have it pulled up, but it was like, I didn't understand how a minimum wage could be like effective if it's like set below like the original wage that was being like paid, I guess. If that makes sense.
Go ahead, Parker.
On number 14, they're saying that the effective minimum wage is being imposed on a monopsony labor market, which in a monopsony, the wage is below the perfectly competitive wage of the labor market. It's saying that it would be like between the two of them.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, guys, in a monopsony, there's only one buyer of labor, right? So they have a lot of power to determine what the wage rate's gonna be, because there's no other place to work. Either you come work for us or you have no job, right?
going off number 14, so it says like employment would increase, but there would be a shortage. Why would there be a shortage?
Why would there be a shortage?
I could be wrong on this, but would it be like, there's only so much depending on like your wage rate, so there'd be less workers because they have to pay each worker more, so they couldn't employ as many.
Yeah, there would be a shortage because there's a lot more willingness to work at that higher wage, the minimum wage. But because of the rule of the firm wanting to hire where marginal resource product is equal to margin or factor cost, they're not gonna hire that many. Does that make sense? Okay, so it's the typical where the quantity demanded exceeds the quantity supplied at that wage. Kendall?
So, but if the minimum wage is imposed, there's more workers hired still?
Yeah, I mean, depending. Like, this is the thing we got stuck on, which is, like, theoretically, in that one slice of time, yes. But would it actually happen in reality? No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's just the weird one.
That's the weird,
Okay.
that's the weird stuff. Yeah.
So for the monopsony minimum wage, like on a graph to show where the new labor is, it's like where the minimum wage hits the supply curve. Not-
And then it goes up to the already existing marginal factor cost curve.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one where it like looks like, it kind of goes like this, and then it goes up, and then it's like that. Andy?
Does like an increase in worker productivity cause firms to hire more people or less?
Ooh. This is a good question. You will definitely have a question like this. Alright, is
Would an increase in worker productivity cause firms to hire more or less people?
Let's talk about this. What is a firm's demand for labor based on? Two things. There should be two things. It's based on what, Mary?
Supply?
No.
Could
which is their demand is the marginal resource product curve. Where do we get those? What are the two things we get, like numbers we need to have in order to figure out what their marginal resource product curve looks like? This is the content behind the content. Yuri? Marginal product. Okay, say that again louder.
You get it by multiplying marginal revenue times marginal profit.
Okay. In this scenario, what is marginal revenue? What's marginal revenue?
Is it just like the additional, or the increase in revenue from like one additional?
Yeah. There's a way shorter word that describes this, that's super easy. Price. It's what they charge. It's what they charge per unit of the good, right? It's their price. So it's marginal product times price. That gives you marginal revenue product. Those two things together. So, let's go back and answer the question that was a really good one. What happens if worker productivity increases? How does it impact how many workers a firm's gonna hire? Kendall?
So if their productivity increases, that would make the like marginal product increase, which would make the firm want to hire more to then like get the marginal product like down to the factor.
Yeah. So when we talked at the very, very beginning of this unit about the demand for labor or the demand for any product or factor of production, you guys identified the fact that the demand for that is a derived demand. And it is based on the productivity level of that factor of production and the price that they're gonna get, like the revenue they're gonna get from selling one unit of the good. So if the price of the good goes up, that would increase demand for laborers or capital or whatever in that particular production process. Or if productivity increased. Okay, so either of those two things increase, that it's gonna increase demand for that factor of production. Do you have a follow-up question, Lily?
It was just one of the
Yeah, it
questions. It's there.
Go ahead, Sophie.
Kind of circling back to cost minimization.
Mhm. Yeah, this is the hardest thing. This is the hardest thing. When you add laborers, you are decreasing their marginal product because of diminishing returns. So it seems weird when we're trying to reduce the size of a number on one side of an equation that we have to balance, that we're adding, okay? But as you add, as we've said before, marginal product decreases. Each additional laborer is going to add less and less to the total product. So even though that ratio was 2 to 1 between labor and capital, what you need to do to balance that equation is to add more labor, because their marginal product is going to decrease as you add more workers. Yeah.
I have a follow-up question to that. So in one of the saplings, it was talking about it, and like I figured out which side you would add more to, but then it was talking about what you do to the other side. Like it was like you would increase like land or something, but then it was like what do you do to the capital? And I was wondering how you figure out if you like keep it the same or if you like add more. Like
It could be either
it
or,
could be
but usually it's add more labor, less capital.
okay.
Would you, like, if you were saying, like, oh, you would add more labor, but you wouldn't have to necessarily say, like, how much exactly?
unless you're solving for X on either, like, there are questions that you might be faced with where you would be asked for a specific number, but you'd have all the information, right? And that would be an algebraic solve. Does that make sense? Right? Yeah, so you might be called on to solve for X. So, once again, you're allowed to have a simple calculator on Friday. If you feel comfortable or uncomfortable about doing that kind of Algebra 1 work while you're trying to focus on all this content on Friday, you need to remember to bring what do you call it, calculator. Okay, I have a reflection for you guys. You don't have to finish it before the test on Friday. I'll publish it on Canvas tomorrow for your hybrid day, but it won't be due until Tuesday. Okay? Take your time. So it's your hybrid assignment, but got
Say
more
bye.
time than normal.
Bye.
Also, tomorrow, guys, for hybrid, I will have office hours available. If you want to meet with me one-on-one before Friday's test, let me know your freeze, and I'm happy to schedule that. That's it. Bye, millionaires.